Hi, Rachel. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm really excited to talk to you today about the work that you do because I think the past 3 months, a lot of people have spent time either looking inward and maybe not liking everything they see or thinking about how they want their life to be in this new world that seems to be emerging. And I know that a lot of them are not sure where to start. I know you do a lot of work with people around finding purpose and meaning and making those changes in their lives. And I was wondering if you could share some information about that with our listeners.
Absolutely. So my background, I have a couple of different things that I do, but one of them, and this is kind of where it started and what kind of led me into a broader speaker platform out there, is I worked together with a couple of other partners and we co-founded a residential treatment center for addiction and basically both chemical and process addiction. So process is a behavior, as you're probably familiar with, that we do compulsively that's causing us issues. And so in the process of setting that up, one of the things that, and really why I went into this industry, because I was not in this industry, I went into it to be a catalyst for change. Because I had a loved one go through treatment, and while they taught him how to manage the behavior to the extent of don't go here and that won't happen, don't buy this and that won't happen, really and truly we call it white knuckling it. That's white knuckling it through things. And the reality of it is that only lasts for so long. I mean, think about how many times we've all set up on January 1st, New Year's resolutions. We're going to go exercise, and for 2 weeks, man, we are powerhouses at the gyms. By the third week, maybe not so much. By the fourth, and then by February, we're trying to figure out how to cancel our membership. So one of the things that I was studying is really about how do you help someone who's gone through a very challenging event find meaning and purpose and understand why that event could benefit them and what the beauty is in the ugly, so to speak. And so we created a curriculum where we added that to what I would call the traditional rehab treatment. And we added this piece that helps people go on a mission and understanding self, figuring out why is this stop at a treatment facility part of my bigger story? What am I supposed to do with that? Because I firmly believe we all have a reason for being on this planet. It's up to us to figure that out. And so to your point, in the difficult times we're all experiencing today, we really don't know where it's going to go. And we maybe experience anxiety and depression. And what you'll see is those compulsive behaviors, of which you said it so beautifully, everybody has. If you're a human being, you have one. It doesn't matter what color your skin is, what color, what race you are, what nationality, what mother tongue you speak, what continent you live on. We're humans and we share the same human experience. We all bleed red. We have belly buttons, we breathe. And so when you think about that, we all have something we do compulsively, and we use that to regulate discomfort. So whether it's physical discomfort, you think about, if I have a headache, I go get something for the headache. But if I'm having emotional discomfort, there's not necessarily a panacea. And I might do some things that I know I shouldn't be doing, or things I'm ashamed that I do. And I use that as a coping mechanism to soothe myself. So that, for me, finding meaning and purpose in life and understanding why we use those compulsive behaviors, because too often we focus on them. Think about it, the Ben and Jerry's. Okay, so I gained a few extra pounds too during COVID, but my bigger issue is shoes. So I have a shoe collection. I would be embarrassed if you came in my house to see where I stuff it. And I had to sit down and think about why. Why do I have so many pairs of shoes? And they're not expensive shoes, by the way. It's a thrill of the deal, right? And I was able, once I got still, which I hope people are taking advantage of this time right now to get still. And if there's things that you're questioning why you do that, get still and you'll process it. And I was able to correlate the shoes, which seems so silly and simple, back to a time when I was a young girl that I felt less than because I didn't have appropriate shoes for a church service on Easter. And I was embarrassed. And as a child, we're so easily influenced by peer pressure and those types of things, that somewhere in my psyche embedded the fact that if I have the right shoes, I won't feel that feeling. So it's a way to avoid that feeling. So if I'm starting to feel something that's uncomfortable, the shoes tended to fix that. And, people say, well, should you stop the compulsive behavior? Well, I mean, the difference between a compulsive behavior and someone who's in pure addiction needs to probably seek professional help would be when it's causing you legal problems, emotional problems, relationship problems, financial problems, health problems, all of those types of things, and you can no longer manage it. It's grown bigger than you. But I'm really, really am trying to lead the charge to normalize the understanding of addiction, and that we all have patterns, and too much of it could cause us all kinds of issues in life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with that. And it's integrated into mindfulness from the perspective that just because you're mindful of what you're doing, you're aware of what you're doing, doesn't mean if it's not good for you that you're not going to do it every time. It means that you're processing, okay, I know I'm doing this. You're asking yourself as you're doing it, why am I doing this? My Ben and Jerry's, it turned out, was boredom. Just truly boredom in the evening after, I don't know, night 42. I just wanted something different, right? So
Right.
I agree with that. It's not about, I mean, if it's something unhealthy or it's causing harm to you or others, then that's the time you want to look at it. But if it's, you need a little quick hit here and there, I don't think that there's any harm in that if it's not causing any major harm to you or other people. So I absolutely agree with that. But now if people, now, there's the whole thing going around about COVID-19 with people packing on 19 pounds is a good example.
Hmm.
That's not healthy. And there's probably some other things that are even more harmful that some people are doing just to try to cope with everything that's going on. So what would it look like if someone really wanted to change one of these compulsive behaviors? What does that look like? Like, where would they start, or what would the steps be?
Okay, so I actually created this acronym called ARCH. So if you think of an arch as an like architectural element in construction, it is a support system, and it's arched, and it's designed to be incredibly supportive and decorative too at the same time, but mostly the supportive piece of that. And so I came up with an acronym to help people understand really what I believe are the architectural aspects of change. So the first thing is the A, and the A stands for awareness. You have to first have an awareness about the need to change. So maybe something is uncomfortable. Maybe you're spending too much money on it. Maybe you can't wear your clothes anymore, and you're worried when you do have to go back to the office, you might not be able to get into them. Whatever it might be, you have to first have an awareness about whatever that thing is. Then when you take a look at that, you look at what the root cause is. We are masterminds as human beings of treating symptoms. We're great at symptoms. What I don't think we excel as much is really looking at the root cause piece of that. There's an underlying issue. Someone is gaining the COVID-19 pounds, or drinking too much, or spending too much, or workaholism is another one. And until you understand what that root cause and what that particular behavior or substance is doing to help you manage that, you're really not going to get to the issue. You might be able to fix a few of the symptoms, like go lose weight, you stop eating a little bit too much, but you don't really understand where's that coming from. And oftentimes it's emotional, or it's boredom. It's, so maybe the solution is get active doing something exciting that doesn't allow you to feel that boredom, or to embrace the boredom. Boredom's not a bad thing in and of itself. But then the C stands for change. So now you've got to change. So what does that future state look like for you? And understand, I'm here, and kind of in your coaching practice, you probably see that with your clients. You look at someone who's here and they say they want to be here, and then your job is to help them figure out the steps to get to that destination.
Right.
So that's the change part of it. And then the H is heal. Okay, so people often forget, sometimes you have to grieve even the loss of that behavior or that coping mechanism or whatever that might have been in exchange for something new and improved and healthier. And so we often forget that stage, and that's really a part of kind of closing the circle on change, really, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I agree with that. Oh, that's great. And that's an easy acronym to remember. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One of the things that we're asking all of our guests, if they're willing to share, is there's frequently a misperception that those of us that teach, coach, practice mindfulness, do all of these things, don't have any challenges. We don't have problems. We don't get stressed. They think that it's some magical cure for everything, which of course is not true. We're all human. So we're asking each of our guests if they're willing to share what their go-to is when they start feeling anxiety rise or they start feeling stress coming on. What's your practice?
So I'll give you both the unhealthy and then the
Okay,
healthy. Does that sound
excellent.
good?
Yeah.
So the unhealthy would be, I am a master of eating my feelings at times. So I go up and down the same 20 pounds. So if you watch a podcast of me a few months ago, it looks different than the one, recently, whatever the situation may be. And it's the same 20 pounds. Like we know each other really, really well now. And so that's the one. And then the shoes piece of that I mentioned earlier. And so one of the things that I've learned, and I actually learned this from a practitioner with the Heartfulness Way, is really getting present, to your point, mindfulness. And he actually helped me. I had severe anxiety. I fly for a living. It's not uncommon. 2 years ago, I did 200,000 air miles speaking across the globe. So one of the things people don't know about me is I have severe flight anxiety. And the root cause of that was going back to a flight that I had that was very traumatic, and the sensations and feelings around all of that, and the fear of dying in that situation. And so the work I did was understanding that we're all going to die. We're all humans. We're all going to die. And that for me, spiritually does not mean it's final. But understanding that piece of it, but then working with a practitioner where we sat under jets, taking off at the airport. I could smell the jet fuel, hear the jets, and envision myself on the plane and whatnot. And once I got at peace with that, I've never had flight anxiety again. And I keep telling people it was a little thing that had a profound impact. And it was all really around mindfulness, and that as human beings, we don't even understand that we have that power. There's no external person or activity or anything that's going to fix that. It's really about shifting the way you think about something. And like I said, it was a minor thing that had a major payoff for me. And most people don't understand that.
Yeah. We focus a lot on perspective, just trying to get people to shift even a perspective, because it changes, just that changes everything about the way you look at something. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that too. Great. So I was wondering if you have any thoughts about people. We've got people in flux, right? Everyone's in a different position right now. We're all going through the same thing, but at different phases. And so some people, or I think many people, think that they can't really start doing any kind of changes in their life, or take action, or whatever it is that they're thinking they're going to do in the future, because of maybe the shutdown, or because they're restricted in where they can go, or who they can see, or waiting to go back to work, or whatever the circumstances are, sort of what they may be seeing as external obstacles that maybe are internal obstacles. But I was wondering if you have any sort of final thoughts or advice for people that really do want to make these changes, and are thinking they need to wait until the challenges are over.
I'd say jump right in. One of the things that I teach is you cannot level up if you're tethered down. And tethered down could be physically, emotionally, whatever it may be. So the first thing I'd be doing is figuring out what I need to cut that's tethering me down so I can level up. And you can be making those changes as you go along. You don't have to wait for this big grand moment. I mean, think about this. How often do people say, I'm not going to have children until I'm financially ready? Are you ever really financially ready? No. Just get in there and do it, and you'll figure it out along the way. And so that's what I encourage people to do. I would align myself with people that are at that future state, someone who's maybe even been through it and can understand. I would take full responsibility that I have to be the navigator through this. I am the captain of my ship. It's not anyone else's responsibility to make me happy, to make me not anxious. It's my job. I would start too, for some people, they may need to talk to a professional, whether it's a coach that can help them organize kind of next steps. Because I think too often we get overwhelmed if we're trying to go from here to here. Well, you and I both know as coaches, there's lots of steps in between. And often we don't celebrate those little milestones because we're too busy getting to here. So what I would say is sit down and have a real honest conversation with yourself, and potentially someone you trust that you feel like can help you with this. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a coach, whoever, but that you lay out the steps and you celebrate the milestones as you get there. I'm trying to get my COVID-20 off, and I'm having to celebrate in 5-pound increments, so I get excited about the 5 pounds, whereas before I would be defeated saying it's not the 20,
Yeah.
So I think that's a big piece of it. But having a roadmap, you cannot get to a destination if you do not have a map.
Great. No, that is true. And especially I think when we're sort of distracted by external stressors. You know what I mean? So we need to know exactly where we're going despite what's happening around us or because of what's happening around us. But I agree with you. If we don't have that sort of mapped out, it's really easy to get distracted, pulled down, self-defeat starts coming into it. So I think that's great advice. If people are interested in learning more about your services and your events, how would they reach you, or what's the process?
So they can go to healingspringsranch.com or evolveandtransform.me. And they can read more about not just the addiction piece of it, because that's the Healing Springs, but then also on the coaching and really understanding compulsive behaviors, mindset shifts, the drama triangle, all these things that I also teach within that community at Healing Springs is stuff that all of us really could benefit from. And I wanted to just say one thing real quick to a comment. It's a brilliant comment that you made, that too often people think that whether they're clinicians or doctors or coaches, that they're kind of perfect in their practice. None of us are perfect, none of us. And we all have moments of weakness and moments where we kind of delve off of the path. But really and truly, healing is about recognizing when you're here and getting back on the path, And so I tell that to people that are in recovery of anything, that it's about recognizing, again, the awareness you're off course and getting back on and then continuing your journey. So I love that you say that. And I think most of us that go into helping professions go into it because we get it, because we probably experience it, we can relate to it. And that's what I think ultimately calls people to helping professions. So I wanted to pay homage to that comment you made, because I think that's important for people to understand out there.
Thank you. I do too. One of the hardest things for people, mindfulness is pretty simple, right? It's basically, it starts just with self-awareness. It's just getting into the habit of really paying a lot of attention. But when we are working with new students learning mindfulness for the first time, when we do breathing exercises and they say, my mind wandered, and I said, but you noticed your mind wandered, so that's mindful. Right? It's such a simple thing, and it's such a hard concept. It's like, actually, you learn more as you make the mistakes. That's because you're aware of them and then you keep building. So I think it's the same thing with any of this, making changes, understanding where you want to go, understanding who you want to be now, which I find exciting, but some people I know are still very anxious about it because they don't know yet. So I love the tips and the advice and the wisdom you've shared today that can help people start on their journey if they haven't started, or help them move along their journey if they have. And so I just want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I will say this in closing too, that Joseph Campbell has a great phrase that says, go into the cave you fear the most. It contains the treasure you seek. So change is always has a component of fear. You go through that. That's okay. It happens all the time. It's worth it.
Yes, I love Joseph Campbell. So that's a great way to end. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
Rachel.
much. I appreciate it.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.